Have you ever walked into a room so grand it made your breath catch, but felt like you didn't belong? That's how Isla felt, balancing a tray of champagne flutes in the glittering ballroom of the Row Grand Hotel. The chandeliers above sparkled like stars, casting light over tables draped in white linen, each set with crystal glasses and silver cutlery that gleamed under the glow. The air buzzed with the chatter of wealthy guests, men in tailored tuxedos, women in dresses that shimmered with every step. Isla, 25, moved through the crowd in her waitress uniform, a crisp white shirt, red waistcoat, and black pants, her blonde wavy hair pulled back in a relaxed claw clip. She was used to blending into the background, a linguistics student paying for her studies one tray at a time. The charity gala was the biggest event of the year at the Row Grand, a towering hotel in the heart of the city, all glass and marble, where the elite came to be seen. Isla weaved between guests, offering drinks with a polite smile, her eyes catching snippets of their world, gold watches, diamond earrings, laughter that felt too loud. She didn't mind the work. It was steady, and the tips helped with rent. But tonight felt different. There was a hum in the air, like something big was coming, though she couldn't place why. At the front of the ballroom, a stage was set with a podium, a massive screen behind it flashing images of children smiling, families reunited, the charity's work in action. The crowd hushed as Damien Rowe stepped up. At 50, he was the kind of man who commanded attention without trying. Tall, with silver streaks in his dark hair and a sharp navy suit, he owned the hotel and half the city's skyline. His smile was warm but practiced, the kind that made people lean in. Isla paused near a table, adjusting her tray, watching him. Everyone did. "Good evening, friends," Damien began, his voice smooth through the microphone. "Thank you for being here to support this cause. Tonight, we're not just raising money, we're changing lives." The crowd clapped, a wave of murmurs rippling through. Isla glanced at the guests nearest her, their faces glowing with pride, as if their presence alone was a gift to the world. Damien's tone shifted, a spark of mischief in his eyes. "But before we get to the auction, I have something special to share. Something personal." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, weathered envelope, yellowed at the edges. The room went quiet, every eye on that envelope. Isla felt a tug of curiosity, her tray forgotten for a moment. What was it about that little piece of paper that made the air feel heavier? "This," Damien said, holding it up, "is a letter. An ancient one, written in a dialect so rare most scholars can't crack it. It belonged to my mother, Elena, who passed when I was young. She left it to me, but I've never known what it says." His voice softened, and for a second, he wasn't the billionaire hotel magnate. He was just a man, holding a piece of his past. "I've had experts look at it, linguists, historians, you name it. No one's figured it out. It's a mystery, and I'm not a man who likes mysteries unsolved." The crowd chuckled, a few leaning forward in their seats. Isla's fingers tightened on her tray. A rare dialect? Her heart gave a little jump. She'd spent years studying obscure languages, dialects from forgotten corners of the world, under her grandmother Myra's guidance. Mira had raised her, filling her childhood with stories and songs in languages most people had never heard. Isla pushed the thought aside. She was here to serve drinks, not solve puzzles. Damien grinned, the showman returning. "So, here's the challenge. If anyone here can translate this letter, I'll make it worth your while. Let's just say the Row Grand has a few treasures up its sleeve." Laughter rippled again, but there was an edge to it now, a hunger. Guests exchanged glances, some whispering, others shaking their heads. A billion-dollar challenge from Damien Rowe wasn't something to ignore. Isla moved to the side of the room, setting her tray on a stand to refill glasses. Her eyes kept drifting to Damien, still holding that envelope like it was both a treasure and a weight. She wondered what it said, why it mattered so much to him. The gala carried on, waiters like her gliding through, plates of appetizers disappearing, glasses clinking. But the letter lingered in her mind, a quiet pull she couldn't shake. A woman in a sapphire dress bumped into Isla, nearly knocking the tray from her hands. "Oh, sorry dear," the woman said, barely glancing at her before turning back to her conversation. Isla steadied the glasses, her cheeks warm. Just another night, she told herself. Keep moving. She picked up the tray and slipped back into the crowd, her steps careful, her mind buzzing. On stage, Damien was introducing the auction now, his voice bright as he described the first item, a painting worth more than Isla's entire apartment building. The crowd clapped, hands waving paddles, numbers climbing higher with each bid. Isla caught sight of a man in a black suit, his paddle raised, a smirk on his face as he outbid everyone. The room felt alive, electric with money and power. But Isla's attention kept slipping back to that letter. She imagined the words inside, scrawled in ink faded by time. What dialect could stump every expert? She knew a few old Slavic tongues, rare Balkan dialects Mira had taught her. She shook her head, almost laughing at herself. She wasn't about to step up in her waitress uniform and solve Damien Rowe's mystery. Still, the thought nagged at her, like a song she couldn't quite remember. As the auction rolled on, Isla worked the room, offering drinks, clearing plates. She overheard snippets of talk, stocks, vacations, who was buying what. But some guests were still whispering about the letter, their voices low, curious. One man, older, with a thick beard, leaned toward his tablemate. Bet it's just a stunt. Rowe loves the drama. His friend shrugged. Maybe. But that envelope looked real. You see his face when he talked about his mother? Isla's tray was nearly empty again. She headed toward the service area, passing a group of women in glittering gowns. One of them, her hair piled high with pearls, was saying, "If I could read that thing, I'd ask for his private jet." They laughed and Isla smiled faintly, keeping her head down. She reached the service area, setting her tray beside a stack of napkins. Another waiter, a guy named Tom, leaned over. "You hear Rowe's challenge? Guys got too much money, throwing riddles at us like we're in a movie." Isla nodded, wiping a smudge off a glass. "Yeah. Wonder what's in that letter." Tom shrugged, grabbing a fresh tray. "Probably nothing. Just a rich guy's game." But Isla wasn't so sure. She'd seen Damien's face too, the way his eyes lingered on the envelope. It wasn't just a game to him. The night wore on, the ballroom a swirl of noise and light. Isla kept moving, her feet aching in her black flats, her smile steady. She caught glimpses of Damien now and then, shaking hands, laughing with guests, but always with that envelope tucked back in his jacket. Each time she saw it, her curiosity grew, a quiet itch she couldn't scratch. She told herself to focus, serve the drinks, clear the plates, get through the shift. But the letter felt like a hook in her mind, tugging her toward something she didn't yet understand. By the time the auction ended, the crowd was buzzing, faces flushed from wine and winning bids. Damien took the stage again, thanking everyone, his voice warm but carrying that same undercurrent of something deeper. "You've made tonight unforgettable," he said, raising a glass. "To kindness, to change, and maybe, to solving mysteries." The crowd cheered, glasses clinking, but Isla stood still, her tray balanced in her hands, her eyes on that hidden envelope. She didn't know it yet, but that letter was about to change everything. For her, for Damien, for the room full of people who thought they'd seen it all. The gala was just the beginning. Damien stood near the stage, surrounded by guests, his navy suit pristine, the envelope now tucked inside his jacket. Isla caught his eye for a split second as she passed, and he offered a polite nod, the kind you give someone who's part of the scenery. She returned it, her heart giving a small thud. She wasn't here to stand out. She was here to work, to pay for her linguistic studies, to keep moving forward. But that letter kept nagging at her, its undeciphered words a puzzle she couldn't ignore. She set her tray down in the service area, wiping her hands on a napkin. The other waiters bustled around, grabbing trays, refilling drinks. Tom, the waiter from earlier, leaned close, his voice low. "You still thinking about that letter? Don't tell me you're gonna try solving it." He grinned, half teasing. Isla shrugged, her lips twitching. "Maybe I could. I know a few dialects." Tom laughed, shaking his head. "Yeah, right. You against all those fancy scholars? Good luck." Isla didn't respond, but his words stung a little. She wasn't just a waitress, she'd spent years studying rare languages, learning from her grandmother Mira, who'd filled her childhood with old songs and stories from their Balkan roots. She pushed the thought away, grabbing a fresh tray of champagne. The night wasn't over, and she had a job to do. Back in the ballroom, the mood had shifted. The auction was done, and guests mingled, their voices softer now, wine loosening their tongues. Damien stepped onto the stage again, the microphone in his hand. The crowd quieted, turning to face him. Isla paused near a table, her tray steady, her eyes on him. He looked different now, less polished, like something heavy was settling on his shoulders. "Before we wrap up," Damien said, his voice carrying across the room, "I want to come back to that challenge. This letter," he patted his jacket where the envelope sat, "it's not just a curiosity. It's personal. My mother, Elena, left it behind, and I've spent years wondering what she wanted me to know. If anyone here can shed light on it, I'd be grateful. More than grateful." His tone was light, but his eyes weren't. They searched the crowd, almost pleading. Isla's pulse quickened. She knew she shouldn't, but the words slipped out before she could stop them. "I might be able to help." Her voice was quiet, barely carrying, but a few guests nearby turned, their brows raised. She froze, her tray wobbling slightly. What was she doing? She was just a waitress, not some scholar in a suit. Damien's gaze landed on her, sharp and curious. "I'm sorry, miss, what did you say?" The microphone amplified his voice, and now half the room was looking at her. Isla's cheeks burned, but she straightened, setting her tray on the nearest table. "I said I might be able to help. With the letter. I study linguistics. Rare dialects specifically." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some amused, others skeptical. A woman in an emerald gown whispered to her friend, "A waitress? Really?" Damien raised a hand, quieting the room. "Come up here," he said, not unkindly. "Let's hear you out." Isla's stomach twisted, but she walked toward the stage, her flats clicking on the polished floor. Every step felt like a mile, the weight of eyes on her, judging, curious, disbelieving. She climbed the steps, her hands clasped to keep them from shaking. Damien handed her the envelope, his expression unreadable. "What's your name?" he asked. "Isla. Isla Kovac." She took the envelope, her fingers brushing the worn paper. It felt fragile, like it might crumble under her touch. "All right, Isla," Damien said, stepping back, giving her the stage. "Let's see what you've got." She opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet, its ink faded but deliberate. The words were in a script she recognized, a rare Slavic dialect, one Mira had taught her years ago, spoken in a small region near Vranj. Her heart raced. She could read it. She could actually read it. Isla cleared her throat, her voice shaky at first. "It's a letter from a woman named Elena. She's writing to her son." She paused, glancing at Damien. His face was still, but his eyes were locked on her, intense. She continued, reading slowly, translating as she went. "She says she's alive, but she can't come back. Not yet. She talks about a promise, a debt she owes, and a lullaby she used to sing to you. Something about a willow tree." The room was silent now, the air thick. Damien's hand gripped the podium, his knuckles white. "A lullaby?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What else?" Isla kept going, her voice steadier now. "She says she's in hiding, that she had to leave to protect you. There's something about a locket, one she left with a friend named Mira." Isla's breath caught. Her grandmother. Her hand went to her neck, where a small silver locket hung, a gift from Mira she'd always worn. She hadn't thought twice about it until now. Damien stepped closer, his eyes wide. "Mira? You know that name?" His voice cracked, and the crowd leaned in, sensing something big. Isla nodded, her fingers touching the locket. "Mira was my grandmother. She raised me. She gave me this." She unclasped the locket, opening it to reveal a tiny photo inside. A woman with dark hair, smiling softly. "Is this Elena?" Damien stared at the locket, his face a mix of shock and something deeper, something raw. "That's her," he said almost to himself. That's my mother. The crowd gasped, whispers erupting like sparks. Isla's mind spun. How was this possible? Her grandmother had never mentioned Elena, not once. But the letter, the locket, it was all too real. Damien took the letter from her, his hands trembling slightly. Keep going, he said, his voice urgent. What else does it say? Isla swallowed, her eyes scanning the page. She says she loves you, that she's sorry. She wanted you to know she never stopped watching over you, even from far away. She asks you to forgive her. Her voice softened, the weight of the words settling over her. She looked up at Damien, whose face was pale, his eyes glistening. The room felt frozen, every guest hanging on the moment. You're sure? Damien asked, his voice breaking. You're sure it's her? Isla nodded, her own throat tight. The dialect, the locket, the lullaby, it all fits. My grandmother used to sing that same willow tree song to me. I didn't know why until now. The crowd was buzzing now, a low hum of shock and curiosity. A man in a tux called out, "Is this for real?" Another guest, a woman with a pearl necklace, whispered loudly, "She's just a waitress, how does she know this?" But Damien ignored them, his focus on Isla. You learned this dialect from your grandmother? He asked. Yes, Isla said. She was from Vranj, same as Elena. She taught me everything. Languages, stories, songs. I thought it was just her way of keeping our heritage alive. I didn't know it was this. Damien looked at the letter, then back at her, his expression torn between disbelief and hope. This changes everything, he said, almost to himself. He turned to the crowd, his voice steadier now. This young woman just did what no scholar could. She gave me back my mother's voice. The crowd erupted in applause, some clapping slowly, others still whispering, unsure what to make of it. Isla stepped back, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected this, any of it. She just wanted to help, to see if she could read the words. Now she was standing on a stage, the center of a moment that felt bigger than her, bigger than the gala. Damien reached out, touching her arm gently. Thank you, Isla, he said, his voice thick. You don't know what this means. She nodded, clutching the locket, her mind racing with questions. Myth, Elena, the letter, what connected them? And why had her grandmother never told her? The air was heavy with anticipation, the crowd watching, waiting for what came next. Damien held the letter like it was a lifeline, his eyes searching hers for answers neither of them fully had yet. Damien cleared his throat, turning to the crowd, his voice steady but thick with emotion. This night was about giving back, but I didn't expect to receive something so personal. He looked at Isla, his eyes softening. Isla, you've given me something I thought was lost forever. My mother's words. Her truth. He paused, holding up the letter. And I keep my promises. You translated this, so legally the restaurant downstairs is yours. The crowd gasped, a wave of murmurs rippling through. Isla's breath caught. L'Etoile was the hotel's crown jewel, a Michelin-starred restaurant that drew the city's elite. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Rowe, I can't, that's too much. But Damien raised a hand, his smile firm. It's not. You earned it. And I want you to make it your own. Isla's mind spun. She was a waitress, a student, scraping by to pay for her linguistics degree. Owning a restaurant like L'Etoile was beyond anything she'd imagined. She glanced at the locket in her hand, the tiny photo of Elena inside, and felt a tug of something deeper. This wasn't just about her. It was about Mira, Elena, and the connection they shared. She looked at Damien, her voice quiet but sure. If I do this, I'd like to rename it. Myra's Willow. For my grandmother. And your mother. Damien's eyes glistened, and he nodded. Myra's Willow. I like that. The crowd clapped, some standing, their applause warm but tinged with awe. A woman in a silver dress wiped her eyes, whispering to her friend, That's beautiful. Isla felt the weight of their stares, but for the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt like she belonged. The gala ended soon after, guests drifting out, their conversations alive with the night's events. Isla stayed behind, helping clear tables out of habit, her mind racing. Damien approached, his suit jacket off now, his tie loosened. "Can we talk?" he asked, gesturing to a quiet corner. She nodded, following him, the locket still in her hand. They sat at an empty table, the ballroom nearly empty now, the chandeliers dimmed. Damien set the letter down, his fingers tracing its edges. "I need to understand," he said. "My mother, Elena, she was alive when she wrote this. All these years, I thought she was gone. Why didn't she come back?" His voice was raw, searching. Isla took a breath, her own questions swirling. "I don't know. Mira never told me about Elena, but she must have known her. The locket, the lullaby, they're connected. Mira raised me after my parents died. She taught me that dialect, the one in your letter. I think she wanted me to be ready for this, somehow." Damien leaned back, his eyes distant. "I need to go to Vranj. To find answers. Will you come with me? You know the language, the culture. I could use your help." Isla hesitated, her life, school, work, rent, flashing through her mind. But the pull of the truth was stronger. "Yes," she said. "I'll go." Weeks later, they stood in Vranj, a small town nestled in rolling hills, its streets lined with old stone houses. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine. Damien had arranged everything. Flights, a guide, a quiet place to stay. Isla translated as they met locals, piecing together Elena's story. They learned she'd fled during a time of unrest, hiding to protect Damien from dangers tied to her past. She'd sent the letter through Mira, her closest friend, hoping one day he'd understand. But she'd died before she could return, her secret kept until now. Damien listened to every detail, his face heavy with grief but also relief. At a small cemetery he found Elena's grave, a simple stone under a willow tree. He knelt, placing the letter beside it, his voice low. "I forgive you, Mom." Isla stood back, her own eyes wet, feeling Myra's presence in the moment. She touched her locket, whispering, "Thank you, Grandma." Back in the city, Isla took over Luitoil, now Myra's willow. She poured herself into it, blending her heritage into the menu, dishes inspired by Vranj, flavors Mira had taught her. The restaurant thrived, its tables filled with people drawn to its warmth, its story. Isla hired locals from her neighborhood, giving them chances she'd once needed. She kept studying, her linguistics degree now a tribute to Myra's lessons. Damien became a regular, not as a billionaire but as a friend. He'd sit at a corner table, sipping coffee, sharing stories of Elena. Their bond grew, rooted in the letter that had brought them together. One evening, as the restaurant buzzed with laughter, Damien raised a glass to Isla. "To you," he said. "And to them." She smiled, clinking her glass against his, feeling the weight of their shared past lift. Myra's Willow became more than a restaurant. It was a symbol of love, language, and second chances. People came not just for the food but for the story, spreading it through the city and beyond. Isla and Damien's work inspired others, from scholarships for students to funds for preserving rare dialects. The letter, once a mystery, had sparked a legacy that touched lives far beyond that gala night. That was today's story. If it moved you, hit that like button, share it with a friend who appreciates a powerful twist, and subscribe for more cinematic tales that linger long after the screen fades. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.